Okay, so we're going to be working in Adobe InDesign this week. And Adobe InDesign is actually kind of the industry standard software used in the design industry that is actually for layout. So InDesign would be used for like poster layout, any kind of print layout, like newspaper, print design, or like books, if you're designing a cover for a book, any kind of layout that you might be doing. You know, Illustrator was more graphic based, so we did, a logo in there, drawing based kind of things like the mural was. But InDesign is a layout program first and foremost. So if you are opening up InDesign for the first time, you're probably going to notice that it may not be in the right unit of measurement. And in order to fix that, you just need to go to InDesign up here at the top. If you're on a PC, it might be a little bit different. But you go to InDesign, it might be under Edit Preferences if you are on a PC, but on a Mac, it's InDesign Preferences. And then Units and Increments right here. So InDesign Preferences, Unit and Increments. If you're on a PC, it would be Edit Preferences, I believe. Units and Increments. You come in here, this is the first thing you should be doing. You want to go to Units and Increments here if you aren't already here, which you probably will be. But the horizontal and the vertical units are in picas, which is not correct. We want it on inches. So we want to change both the horizontal and the vertical to inches. The stroke is in points, which is good. Everything else should be okay. So then you just push OK. And so you should be ready to go after that. But make sure you do that before anything else. And if we do this before opening any kind of document, that's going to be the best because it'll actually set the program to inches from now on. So let's just go to Create New right away. I'm actually just going to have you go to kind of the preset things under print. They do have web stuff here and mobile layouts here. They're just canvas sizes or document sizes. So we'll go to print because we're actually going to be focusing on print with this class. So tabloid is 11 by 17, which is actually going to be the size of your poster that I'm going to have you guys design for our next project. So if we click on that 11 by 17 inch tabloid, we can look over here on this panel here, and this is where we can label our document. So I can just say, InDesign Warmup. I think that's what I'm going to call this. Let's see here. I think this is actually going to be the file name. So you can put that in there. A lot of times I don't actually put anything in here, but you can go ahead and label it if you want. So as you can see, it's 11 by 17 inches. Here, we can change the units if we wanted to, but we don't. You can change the orientation, so you could make it 17 by 11, so it'd be 17 wide. But I'm just going to have you guys keep it at 11 inches wide by 17 tall. This is actually for facing pages. This would be if our pages were, if we had more than one page, we might consider this this checkbox, but don't worry about that for now. Columns, column gutter, this is more having to do with if you were laying out a multiple page document, so we don't really have to worry about that. Our margins are here, we don't need to worry about those. And these are bleeds and slug areas, don't worry about these either right now. So just push create, and here's that document, that 11 by 17 inch document. Let's go to up here, go to Essentials. Just make sure that your workspace is in the Essentials. You can also go to Window, Workspace, Essentials, or you can actually do Reset Essentials, which I'm going to do just to make sure, and you should do it as well, just to make sure we have the same exact workspace so you guys don't get confused when you're trying to follow along with this InDesign warm-up exercise or assignment that I'm having you do. So after that, let's just take a look around in here. So the Pages palette is over here. Properties is going to be up here first and foremost. but pages is right here. So this where we can see our number of pages. We can add more down here. Of course, for this one, I'm not going to have you do that. You can delete them here. So this is just kind of, if you had like a 5-page magazine layout, you could easily, navigate throughout your pages. So I just wanted to show you guys that. The properties panel is pretty interesting. It's much like the properties panel in Illustrator. It just kind of depends on what tool you're on and what you're clicked on in your canvas, but this properties panel will change according to what tool and what area of your canvas that you're clicked on, basically. I am actually going to expand this out. You might want to do the same. That's just kind of how I like mine to look. This is the toolbar, much like Illustrator had. There's different tools in here, obviously. One of the main tools you're probably going to be using is this selection tool, this black arrow. The white arrow is more of the direct selection tool, but mostly you'll be using this black arrow tool. And here's the text tool. That's another important tool that you might need. If you want to look underneath tools, there's more options underneath them if you click and hold. So here's the type on a path tool. So some of these have these little, triangles in the lower right-hand corner. And if we click down and hold, we can see, oh yeah, there's more tools underneath the tools. So I'm just going to make this a little bigger and bring this back out. So what we're going to do, we're actually going to go into our documents and make sure that you download the file that I give you. It'll be labeled InDesign Warmup exercise. It'll probably be a zip file, so you'll have to download that and unzip it and then put that in your documents under your Graphic Design 350 folder. But once you get that in there, you can actually open up this copy for import file. It's .pdf. And so we can actually open that up using Acrobat Pro DC, which is an automatically like the default for Adobe PDF reader. Basically, it's the Adobe PDF reader. So if we just go in here and click a cursor in here and then do a Command A or Control A on a PC, but Command A for Apple and then Command C for cat, we can copy this text and then go back into InDesign and actually grab the text tool here and click down on that. And we can click and drag a box here. So you have to hold down and click and drag while holding down, and then just do a Command V, and we can bring all that text in from that PDF that we opened in Acrobat. So now we have a little bit of text in our document. This is looking a little bit more complete. We can actually grab this and make the text box smaller if we want to by grabbing this little white arrow. If you get this little hover over that, this little white box, just make sure that you're on the selection tool. If you make it too small, you'll get this little red icon in the lower right hand corner of your text box. And that just means that your text is being truncated and that not all of it's showing. So if you need to make it bigger again, you can just always grab it from either end and kind of drag it out. You can also make it narrower this way. If you make it too narrow, eventually it's going to wrap to a point where, it's going to be no longer able to contain all the text. So you'll get that red icon once again. So I think we'll just size this to be about as wide as the margins are, which you can see in pink all the way around. And just make sure to kind of shrink up that text box just a little bit too, around the text, so it's not like way bigger than your actual text is at this stage. Maybe something like that. And then if you just want to grab the whole thing, a good place to grab it is kind of like in the center, basically. And let's just move it down here for now. Okay, so now we have some of that text in that we brought in. And then we can actually bring in images as well. So if we click on the rectangle frame tool, which is right here underneath this pen tool, underneath the text tool there, if we click on that, we can actually, there's other options underneath. There's, ellipse and polygon, but we're probably just going to use the rectangle. So if you click and drag, you can actually, let's just make it about as wide. You can see how tall it is. There's a W and H You can see this is moving now. So 10 inches wide, let's make it 10 by maybe around 5 inches. So if we let up, you know, when you do that, you're probably not going to pay attention to how big it is as you're clicking and dragging it out like we just did, but I just wanted to show you that that's a possibility. So if we do a file place again, this is the main way of bringing things in, go into that images folder and we're just going to grab this graphic design banner.jpg file. And as you can see, that brings it in, and it's actually not all being shown, but it is set to the width of the document, which is good. So we can actually, you know, drag the box out. If we drag it over the size, like say, you know, this is the actual size of the image that we brought in, but the actual frame is bigger, you can see there's a white space here. And if we click on this direct selection tool, you can see you can actually click on this image that you brought into this frame that we drew with the frame tool, and we can actually move it around with this white arrow tool or the direct selection tool, and you can kind of see how this works in InDesign. It's a little bit different than some of the other programs, and I've noticed it really confuses students. So just be aware that that frame builder tool or that frame, the rectangle frame tool, creates a frame, but the image that you bring in may not be of the same proportions. So, I mean, using this tool may kind of help you see the actual size. The red box is the actual size of the JPEG that we brought in, but we can actually grab it from the corner and just while pushing shift to preserve proportions, we can actually just drag it in from either side to where we have it all showing. I don't know why that popped up, guys. And so now that it's just all showing in there, it's as wide as those margins. And we can see our frame. Let's go back to this selection tool. You can see that the frame that we brought it into is way too tall because I dragged it out. So just kind of fit it nicely to the edge of the JPEG that we brought in. And let's just put this butted up against the top margin, that pink line, so that it's nicely centered in the middle of the document. Okay, so now that we have that image in there the way we want it, maybe we'll grab the direct selection tool, the black arrow tool, click and drag this up, and then let's do a Command plus. You can also use the zoom tool here. So if you click using that, you can get a little closer. So let's just come in here after the first paragraph. I want you to push return, much like in Word. Let's put a couple returns in just to create that white space that we want. And then let's actually go to the properties panel over here, and we will actually center this under the paragraph text here on the properties panel. We can also go to Window, type in tables, and go to character, which I actually kind of like to do. It has a lot of the things that the properties panel might actually have, but I just like it better in some ways. But we can actually go here to the properties panel and go to center align. We can left align, we can right align, but I actually want you to center align this. And then in our character panel or over in this area where there's, you know, some options, it says character here. It just doesn't have all the options. If I open that up, so actually I will X out of this, but if I open that up, you can see this is actually the size that you might want. Essentials Classic is kind of nice because it actually has all of the things that you might need up at the top here as well. But I think I'll just keep it in Essentials for you guys. So let's just make this text bigger. Let's make it 26. And we will put a return after media so that this is on 2 lines. So we're going to treat this kind of like a headline. I took out that extra space, not a huge deal, but and we're just going to kind of treat this first paragraph or sentence as a headline, and then we can actually change the color over here I'm running out of time on this video, so we will continue on in the next